Welcome to Silverstone as we get set for free practice for our second Blancpain GT Series Endurance Cup race of the year. So much for the weather forecast about it being bright and sunny, because what we have instead, I'm afraid to say, is a rather overcast day. We've had some spots of rain this morning, and the drivers are going to be venturing out shortly onto a circuit that is perhaps not going to be ideal for rapid lap times, but they have 1 hour to get themselves used to the circuit. They, apart from the bronze test yesterday, have no running at all, so it's the first opportunity for drivers and teams to get a feel for what Silverstone in 2017 is like. David Addison and John Watson trackside. It's another stellar entry, and as ever in the Blancpain GT Series Endurance Cup, John, we're looking forward to a great race at a superb circuit.
Well, Silverstone Grand Prix circuit doesn't get a lot better, especially if you're a driver. 5.8 kilometers, 3.6 miles, and every corner is a challenge, and what Silverstone offers up to any race driver in any category, be them young, old, or even me, is high-speed corners. A dying breed in racing. It's just a wonderful balance. And we're looking there just coming out of Luffield, watching cars now as they go on track coming down Hanger Straight. It's an absolutely bonkers entry. 55 cars this weekend.
And finding track space, as you can see, is going to be very difficult indeed. And of course, straight away, you're going to have some of the pro drivers out for a timed lap. You're going to have others, the AMs, the Pro-Am drivers as well, feeling their way in. So everybody has to be very, very respectful, especially given what happened in the sprint race at Misano and the endurance race at Monza. And I know that the race director, Alain Adam, has had a word with drivers. I know that the stewards are really looking at contact quite draconially this weekend. So if there is a touch between cars, you can anticipate the penalties to be a little bit steeper than in previous races.
And also, with that low ambient and a little bit of rain, light rain falling, we've got a slippery racetrack right now. Not that you would think it looking at these cars, mostly on their outlap, and they're at the races. They're racing, and it's only an outlap. You know, guys, calm down. Or, as was said in the Houses of Parliament a little while ago, calm down, dear.
Not exactly, but they're not doing it for now.
We're gender neutral here today.
Well, they're not speed neutral, are they? Because, as you say, many of them are getting on with it straight away, trying to work their way through the traffic. We've had 1 or 2 little changes within the entry list. For example, this weekend there's no Robin Frintz again. Jamie Greene takes over his seat in the Audi. It's going to be fascinating. A DTM winner a week ago, to see how he gets on. 75, the ISR Audi you're looking at. Frank Stippler, Philip Salaquada, Clement Schmidt, a car that's run well hitherto this season. Not everybody has gone out. 53 is another of those cars with a change of driver. If you watched Monza, you remember Andrea Bertolini was in that. Well, Rory Butcher takes over this weekend, the brother-in-law of Gordon Shedden.
Hey up! I mean, he's from east north of the border, isn't he?
He's Scottish.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. Knockhill owning family, the Butchers. And Rory, very quick driver. Number 8, Bentley, is the Suchek Soule Abril entry, and that hustles on now up towards Club Corner. Bentley with a point to prove after Monza, John, but also they had a pretty horrible time in the sprint races at Brands Hatch last week.
It's been a difficult start to the 2017 season for the M Sport Bentley team. They've got a car, a potential race winning car everywhere they go. And at Brands Hatch 1 week ago, for some reason they couldn't quite get the car dialed in. Brands is a difficult racetrack to overtake on. It's just the nature of the circuit. At Silverstone, much more wide open spaces. And also because the layout of the racetrack, it does offer up, coming down Wellington Straight, for example, into Brooklands. There are a variety of lines that you could take coming in this late apex corner, which offers up the chance to slide down the inside, try and make the position without making contact, and then the long right at Luffield, which then exits onto what used to be the corner of the circuit. That is Woodcote, still a big corner, still flat out in these GT3 cars, but not quite the challenge it used to be. That challenge is a little bit further around the circuit. Copse is a part of it. Now a much quicker corner. And then the run up into that sequence of corners called Beckett's, Maggots, and then back onto the Hanger Straight. Mega stuff.
It remains a fabulous circuit, and it's the old pits, the heritage pits being used. So Copse is the first corner. We're not operating out of the wing this weekend. So it's the traditional look to Silverstone, as through the Beckett's S's goes Bentley number 8, which has got Maxime Soule at the wheel. Fort Pereira has offered up the lap time. Only one has done a flying lap thus far. But it's not all about times in this session, and of course many of them will be doing this on old tyres anyway, saving the good stuff for tomorrow's race.
Yes, and also it's 3 drivers per car with the exception of the Aston Martin. Mostly 3 drivers per car, so they want to cycle the drivers. Now some drivers will have done the bronze test on Friday afternoon, so they will have familiarised themselves with the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, but others will want to get out, maybe do a 3 to 4 lap run, come in, change drivers, go out and do the same, and then they can start to focus on whatever they want to do with the car. In these cooler conditions, tyre temperature, always the same old story, getting tyre temperatures, pressures, all the usual stuff that teams have to go through. It's their homework, but they're doing it in a session where everybody around them knows what's going on.
We've also this weekend got the Blancpain GT Sports Club races for the bronze drivers, and Oliver Morley, who is taking part within this 3-hour race, has also put himself on the entry list to do those 2 races because it's extra track time.
Ollie, a gentleman, driver.
The same one, yeah, a gentleman in every sense of the word, but the point behind it being that yes, you've got the bronze test, but there's always the chance of interruptions if people go off, whereas if he does the sports club as well, he's got free practice, he's got qualifying, and he's got 2 races, so it's not track time.
That's a lot of track time, and also, you know, the cars are fundamentally getting closer. The Gentlemen's Sporting Club was meant to be for year-old cars or older. Now we're seeing, and Jamie Greene, welcome back, Jamie. He's taking the place of Robin Freyens in the 17 Audi. Robin down in Monte Carlo, taking part in a, I don't know what you want to call that event down in Monte Carlo this weekend, but anyway, welcome Jamie Greene out of DTM, where he is one of the stars in the Audi lineup.
Yeah, formerly a Mercedes driver, wasn't he, but has found a very happy home at Audi of late. So from Pereira the fastest, from Will Stevens, Christopher Hasse 3rd, Philippe Salaquada 4th, and then Jules Gounon going strongly. Coming through Luffield now is number 17, Jamie Greene, playing himself into a very different field of Audi compared to the DTM car, and he bails for the pits.
Yeah, there'll be probably a little bit less downforce, actually probably quite a lot less downforce in the GT3 Audi than there would be in the DTM A4, I think it is, that he would be racing. Just interesting, these track conditions are cool, but if you get a balance, you get heat, you can go very quickly, and right now that time from Hasse in the Audi, 2 minutes 1.8 is actually, considering we've only been running for just under 8 minutes, pretty good effort. There we see one of the 2 Jaguars, which were very impressive, a month or so ago at Monza.
And had their first ever podium here, going back a couple of seasons in the Pro-Am categories they then ran. 114 is Jonathan Hershey at the wheel, and he's got number 8 Bentley tucked up behind him, Maxime Soulet. Not surprisingly, we're already having the warnings about track limits, and very wide goes the Jaguar. Jonathan Hershey being terrorised into that by Soulet behind him.
Yeah, I mean, that's just unfortunate. Coming through Aintree Corner onto the Wellington Straight, easy to rn wide. You're permitted a fudge area in running 2 wheels off the racetrack. It's when you get all 4 wheels off the racetrack that then you get attention. That car, the 22 Nissan, one of the stars we thought at Monza, certainly in qualifying. In the race, Matt Parry sort of blotted his copybook with an aggressive move, and he suffered a severe penalty.
He did. My
view was maybe that he should be just told to give the place back up, but Struan more behind the wheel right now of that 22 Nissan. That's the 23 system. That's the sister car to the one we've just seen, the 22 car.
Now, Mirko Bortolotti has gone fastest. Remember, Lamborghini won at Monza. Lamborghini won the sprint races at Brands Hatch. So, at the moment, the Grassa Racing team very much the top team.
I mean, they've just been not untouchable, but they've done a superb job across the board with driving, with pit stops, with strategy. And Mirko Bortolotti, the man that I noticed, we had an onboard camera in his Lamborghini at Brands Hatch last weekend, he rarely blinks.
Really?
And actually I said that to him in the Parc Ferme, and he looked at me like,
what do you mean?
Suddenly the blinking was an overtime. But it was interesting that it just illustrated the depth of concentration and how different drivers deal with that concentration. Some do blink more than others, but in Mirko's case, it was once a minute, maybe once every 30 seconds. Okay, once 15 seconds, whatever. But in relative terms, not a great deal. There's the 23 Nissan as opposed to the almost identical 22 that we were following. But still, Mirko Bortolotti, 2 minutes 01.684. It's only 0.2 of a second up on the Hasse Audi. nevertheless, they're continuing the momentum they've been building up since Monza.
We've got Maxime Soulet doing absolute bests in the first sector. 23 is currently fifth fastest. Katsumasa Chiyo, as it is Bortolotti from Haase, from Will Stevens from Font Pereira, the order at the moment. You're riding with Chiyo-san now, heading down towards Stoke Corner.
Interestingly, for a minute ago, it was, as Chiyo-san has now gone quickest of all in the first sector. It actually was, up until literally 2 seconds ago, the number at Bentley of Maxime Soulet, who was quickest in sector 1. But this Nissan, and Nissan have sort of refined themselves. They're the two cars running nose to tail in effect. They've seemed to have found themselves. Matt Parry really did something I thought outstanding in qualifying in Monza. And it's almost as if it's been sort of an awakening for the 23 car.
Yeah.
They're not meant to be as quick as us.
And Matt Simmons, who's the third driver in 22, with a season of racing under his belt, another of the PlayStation Academy winners, more confident, he's gained experience, so he's at a better place than he was 12 months ago. And the Nissans traditionally have gone well, at least in qualifying around here, as you ride on board again with 23 Katsumasa Chiyo, good in sector 1, a bit down in sector 2, as you can see from the way the graphic displays it, and heading down towards Brooklands now, turning in.
You see the readout just ahead of the driver, third gear. Holds third gear all the way out of Brooklands into Luffield, and then there's it's a kind of a double apex corner, but some people have one view of it that he's going to make his way into the pits as the sister. No, that's the 23, the car we were on, the 22, into the pit lane. So let's see what he does when he comes across the line. 2:02.0, which is...
It's a better time, and it keeps him fifth, and that is off the road, and it's 35 BMW.
That's going to be a yellow flag, I suspect, about the car retrieved. He looks like he might be on the access road around the back of the gravel trap. He's trying to get the car fired up. You saw a flick of flame coming from the exhaust system. It exits, and there he is.
There's a Copse, isn't it?
Yeah, they're down at Copse.
So Christian Krogner is off the road, the Norwegian driver. Oh no, sorry, it's not Copse, it's Abbey. It's Abbey, yes. You see a pit ward and you instantly think it's the Heritage pit. So he's gone a long way off at Abbey, near the BRDC farm.
Remember, I'm not sure it was in last year's Blancpain round or one of the races we've seen here, but in wet conditions, there is a bump in the middle of Abbey. And I think it might have been the Grand Prix, in fact. And it caught out a lot of people, particularly in those wet conditions.
Yes, right.
Because there's a big commitment in that corner. Maybe not flat out in a GT car, but it just caught out so many drivers. Whether that was the case, the rain that had been falling looks as if it might be blowing through. The sky is beginning to brighten a little bit. Maybe there's a bit of a hint of blue, but there is the BMW. So there's a yellow flag in sector 2. The session still continuing, but you must not go through that sector quicker than your best time previously.
That's the Valkenhorst Motorsport car. Rover Racing is back, having missed Monza because of the VLN event, or the Nürburgring 24-hour qualification race. So you've got Rover Racing back, and of course with two good cars. So BMW in this race is going to be more of a factor. You've also got, of course, the car that won in Pro-Am at Monza, Ahmad Al-Hafi and Johnny Adam. Fastest lap of the race outright to Johnny. What was an amazing last stint.
Stunning. I think everybody in the pit lane were in awe, because not only was he doing fastest lap upon fastest lap, but at the end of a race in a two-driver car, Johnny had the last stint. So it was Ahmed Al-Hahi did a brilliant job. Yeah. I call him the Iron Man of Blancpain GT3.
You're right.
At Monza, it was quite a warm weekend, and it's a tiring circuit. A lot of braking, a lot of lateral G's in some of the corners. So there is the Aston, still a great race car.
And it was a great result for them as drivers of TF Sport that's taken over running the Oman Racing team entry this year. Tom Ferrier's team. Ahmad Al-Hafi heads down towards Stoke Corner. It's the only Aston Martin on the grid. It's an older car in comparison with some, but it's still great to have it represented within the championship. And down through Vale goes 97 now, Johnny Adam. And Ahmad Al-Hafi, it's Ahmad at the wheel, who started off in this country in Formula Renault, then had a spell in Carrera Cup, but goes very well in this car, enjoys his racing in the championship, comes out of club, past the wing, and on towards Abbey, which is where, as John was saying, there is that bump as you turn right.
Yeah, it's just at a critical point in the corner. Yeah. But actually, in practice yesterday for the Super Trofeo, the Lamborghini event, one of the competitors came out of club ran the curb. It was a wet session, ran the curb, which is not the thing you want to do in wet conditions. Flicked the car right into that pit wall, did a significant amount of damage to the car. The driver was fine, but these curbs they're pretty flat. They're very inviting to take advantage of, but you have to be aware that in conditions which are changeable, or certainly when they get damp to wet, you don't want to run them because they will inevitably spin up the wheel that is on it, and that then will cause you a major issue. Hopefully not as severe as we saw with the Lamborghini. Now that is an example of, you can do that, that's legitimate because the inside wheels were still effectively on the racetrack. If you run all four off the racetrack, that will then get the attention of race director, and bearing in mind the shunts that we had initially at the first sprint race at Misano, then the first endurance race at Monza. There were a couple of issues in practice at Brands Hatch, usually individual drivers on their own. Nevertheless, it's just get the guys in and talk to them and point out to them that there are pitfalls, and if you continue to abuse some of the track limits, then you will get penalised.
And Josh Cahill is on his last warning about track limits. Last warning, car 3 TL. So Josh Cahill, 36th fastest, is being warned about track limits. There is 89, which is the Daniele Perfetti, Ludovic Badet, Alex Fontana Mercedes, part of the ACA ASP squad.
Again, coming out of Kopp's corner, an easy way to sort of maybe manage what might not have been your best line through the corner. You can run very wide, but the downside again of doing so is if you do it repeatedly, you will get penalised, as we see the second place AM Ferrari. And we're noticing fewer and fewer AMs in endurance. There's Alex Fontana.
Yeah, I think the AM drivers now are being attracted to the less pressured environment of the GT Sports Club, aren't they?
Yes, indeed. But they're not just doing it in year-old or 2-year-old cars. They're bringing you along.
Absolutely, yeah.
Whatever the latest turnkey model is from Mercedes or Ferrari or whichever brand you want to be associated with.
Now there, Daniele Perfetti's car presses on. Who did we put behind the wheel of that? It was Fontana, wasn't it? And the ex-McLaren racer improving in the sectors, heading up now towards Village in this new section of circuit introduced a few seasons back at Silverstone, up towards the Loop and then through Aintree onto Wellington Straight, speed building all the time. And that's always a pinch point, isn't it, the Loop on the first lap when everyone is tight together. It was a few seasons ago that we had cars tripping over themselves, but the Mercedes now accelerates down Wellington Straight, heading towards Brooklands. Mirko Bortolotti, incidentally, remains the fastest within this session in Lamborghini 63. The car's in the pit lane, so you can anticipate a driver change now. We've not yet talked about McLaren, which struggled a bit at Monza in the first endurance race. Nick Leventis, incidentally, after his accident at Monza, not on the entry for the weekend. 42 has gained Oliver Webb and Alvaro Parent, so Craig Fleming also not here this weekend. So it's a very strong car, you've got to say. Oliver Webb, Alvaro Parent and Lewis Williamson.
Yeah, just looking down, I think the lead McLaren is currently in 18th position, if I'm trying to read the timing and scoring. It's not particularly...
Rob Bell's car.
Yeah, Rob Bell's car, yeah.
And then it's Ollie Webb behind, actually, yes, you're right.
But in reality, I mean, what McLaren tend to do, or Stracker Racing as it might be now, is go through a whole load, a list of jobs they want to get checked out. They're not concerned at this point about the bandstand fastest overall lap time. They want to do the homework principally for what will come tomorrow, this 3-hour endurance race at Silverstone, starting at 2:45 in the afternoon, running up until 5:45 in the early evening. So what they're doing now is relevant in some ways, but of course the time of day the race starts, the ambient and the track temperatures might well be different, but they have to go through this process to get a base from which to work forward.
Car number 3 is being given a black flag. Remember I mentioned Josh Cahill was on his last warning. Well, he's still abusing track limits apparently, and so number 3 is being black flagged.
What does Josh not understand about abusing track limits? Now, either he's not getting a message from his pit lane, which would be unusual because you have to think that Team WRT are pretty on the ball when it comes to advising their drivers, or is maybe he's not able to absorb that information. He will now, because the black flag is a no discussion issue.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting to see now what happens, whether that is the end of the car in the session or just the end of the driver, whether the officials will say, right, you have contravened the regulation so many times you can't go back out, but the car can. But if the car is parked for the bulk of what have we got left, 40 minutes, then that's quite a step back, because you're depriving everybody of the track time.
I tend to think that it is the car, not the driver. And that's why the sin, if you wish, of getting a black flag, not only does it penalise you, it penalises your co-drivers, and it penalises the people that are running the team within the team, running your car. So it's a severe penalty for the entire number 3 car, if that's the way it's interpreted. That's how I would interpret the regulation, but there may be another version and up in the race director's office.
And you make the point in that team, it's not you driving on your own, you are part of a team, so your actions have a big effect, whether it's an accident or a black flag, on your co-drivers, so it's going to compromise everybody.
I mean, that's always been one of the issues when you've got particularly in an endurance race, your teammate might have transgressed twice or maybe 3 times. You go out and quite innocently, okay, you make an error, and all of a sudden that's it. Yeah, so it is the car that carries the penalty, not the driver.
It all tops up, doesn't it? From Pereira, the fastest then, so we've got Mercedes top, 2 minutes 1.476 from Mirko Bortolotti. Mercedes won last year here, didn't it? The great battle we had towards the end of the race between Maxi Buch and Lawrence Vanthoor. Christopher Haase is third in a Pro-Am Audi, so with all due deference, that's going to drop away during the course of the race. And we haven't touched on Ferrari greatly yet, but there is 888, which is the AM Cup car, the Kessel Racing car of Marco Zanotini, Jacques Driver and David Perel, the South African.
I mean, thinking back to Monza, Ferrari in pole position, Passan Thoros was given the opportunity to start the race. Massive shunt going into turn 1, nothing to do with Passan, he was on the front row of the grid. I spoke to Michele Rugolo on the grid and said, why are you putting Passan in? It's such a big responsibility starting from pole position. And we know that he's not the quickest of the 3 drivers, so why not use one of your 2 professional or your gold or platinum drivers to start? That's how teams work these things out. They think that that's the right way to go. Interesting what might happen here, whether if they happen to be on pole position, whether they would follow that same principle.
I mean, some teams will tell you that you will always have to put your fastest driver in at the end, because if there's a late race safety car, you can't afford not to have your faster driver there. Some teams believe as well that at the start of the race there is more chance of a safety car period, and therefore if there are laps under caution conditions, have your slower driver doing them rather than, if you like, wasting a quick driver.
I mean, I think every argument has got its merits.
Yeah.
I think in the case of what the choice was in Monza was Passan Thoros, I think, handed the car over to Michele Rugolo or whomever. The car was down in 20th position. All the good work done in qualifying, and then the difficulty is making back up those positions. So it's a judgment that teams make, and they have to stand by them, because once they've made them, that's their commitment.
You're looking at Chris Goodwin. Welcome back, Chris, who began what seems like 100 years ago in Formula First. His father, Dr. Tony Goodwin, a very successful racer in period. Chris, part of McLaren's factory programme, and he shares this car with Chris Harris, a broadcaster and no mean driver himself, and also Alexander West, the Swedish driver. It's a Garage 59 entry.
This is really in preparation for Spa 24, because this car will be run in Spa. Chris Harris, of course, a journalist, and at one stage I derided journalists because they all thought they were racing drivers. Half of them couldn't drive sheep to market, but Chris Harris has proved that to be not the case. So this car will be a Spa entry, and this is an opportunity for them to get some mileage before they go into that amazing 24-hour event around the Ardennes Mountains, the hills of Spa-Francorchamps.
Can't wait.
No, some people can't.
Of course, before that, we've got a 6-hour race at Paul Ricard, haven't we, to enjoy?
Magic.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Into the dark.
Yeah.
Anyway, Chris Goodwin is down at Club Corner. 48 for the 55 cars that we have in the session at the moment, but it's not about speed, all of this. It's about cycling through and getting experience. Chris has raced in so many different categories over the years. He had a spell in the British Touring Car Championship. He's been a GT peddler of repute and turning his way now through Abbey. Right, 84 from Pereira has given the car over now to Jimmy Eriksson. Brother Joel still doing great things in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Jimmy has raced here before in both GP2 and GP3.
On board with Chris Goodwin in the McLaren, the 119 McLaren, so we're going to ride with. I can't call Chris a racing driver literally. He's very much involved in the development of the McLaren range of products. But down into Brooklands, running the curb on the inside. A member, of course, of the esteemed British Racing Drivers Club. Oh, I'm assuming he is. Otherwise, he shouldn't be abusing the curbs like that.
You tell him, John.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Sometimes Chris, when you see him in the paddock, he's like a very self-pleased child. Big smile. Happy to see you. Pat him on the head. Good boy. Now it's bedtime. No chocky pickies tonight, Chris.
But he delivers, doesn't he, when he gets behind the wheel?
No, he's a good driver, of course he is.
Yeah, and McLaren wouldn't have him on the payroll. He wouldn't do all these car developments if he wasn't a decent peddler. So comes through the Beckett's S's, which is another formidable part of Silverstone, and hustling on.
So there is the 188 coming down the Hanger Straight. Used to be, depending on how the wind blows, the fastest part of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Now that the change to that sequence of corners at Beckett's through, or Maggots, Beckett's, then onto the straight, I think that the quickest part of the racetrack could be probably one of three places, really dependent on the wind direction. Sometimes now coming past the Heritage Pits into Copse, if you get a tailwind, that's just about matching what they're doing coming down Hanger Straight.
This is an AM Cup car. It seems odd in a sense, talking about Chris Goodwin's CV, that he's in the AMs, but it's an age thing as much as the co-drivers. Who else have we got improving?
Oh, Alex Buncombe has gone up to second place, fastest in Sector 3. So that's encouraging, because Nissan, Bob Neville, who runs the program, I think maybe hadn't anticipated that the car would be as competitive this year. It's still effectively, as a 4-year-old GT3 design, the 2018 model we know is in development right now in Japan, which will be very much more of the kind of engineering you might see in a Bentley or in a BMW, where the engine is a lot lower and much further back, and the whole weight distribution, get everything as low as possible. Nonetheless, the 23 car, a strong run.
Oliver Jarvis you're riding with in number 7, the car that had its travails, should we say, at Monza, with Guy Smith's dramas at the start. Guy was on a charm offensive yesterday, in fairness, and this probably took quite a bit of doing. He went to the teams involved in the accident and apologised, took the responsibility for it.
Did he get a bill from any of the teams?
That I can't swear to, but
I tell you what.
It was a sizable accident, but fair play to Guy for at least going and accepting
the thing that I still don't understand, I don't want to rake over old coals, but I think Guy was absolutely persuaded that he had been tapped from behind, and subsequent to the event, every camera available and every angle available, it would appear that there wasn't any contact between the number 7 Bentley from another car, either to the rear or to the side. But once the chain of events got underway, then it was just like a motorway accident.
So we didn't see anything really in that race of Oliver Jarvis. He's here now and going strongly. He's got an LMP2 programme within the World Endurance Championship alongside his Bentley activities. But Oliver, I think, settling in, enjoying being a Bentley boy, and hopefully, because of course it was here that Bentley scored its first win, will be able to get a good result this weekend.
I noticed a new commercial partner on the door of this number 7 Bentley. It's Bentley Birmingham. Look on the side just above.
Oh, yes.
So we're seeing, in fact, an expansion of the Bentley program now. Great, running very wide, coming out of Luffield, but great that the people that sell these products to the regular customers are getting involved, and I would imagine there'll be a significantly large contingent of customers from that branch of Bentley Motors maybe coming up to Silverstone for today, but certainly for tomorrow.
You certainly see a lot of them on the road these days, so the whole motorsport ethos of winning on Sunday, selling on Monday seems to be helping.
In fairness, it's difficult not to see it.
They are still big old beasts, aren't they?
Yeah, but it is, the beauty of this car is it's one of those extremely well engineered GT3 cars that belies its size. It is a great chassis, one of those cars that rides curbs very well. And if you think that the background to M Sports motorsport involvement has primarily been in rallying, one of the keys to a successful rally car is having a suspension that enables you to leap all over the place, but keep the car stable. So maybe they've transferred some of that information background into making the Bentley work extremely well, particularly where you have got legitimate use of a curb.
What he's also got as he comes out of club is traffic up the road. This car is currently to be found 30th overall. So, okay, what do you read into that? It's free practice, you're on old tyres, there's traffic all around you. Qualifying comes tomorrow morning, by the way. You get pre-qualifying later on today, which effectively is free practice too, but then the actual grid deciding qualifying session comes up tomorrow. Could be a completely different weather that the drivers have to cope with tomorrow as well.
I think the session this afternoon, which begins around about 4:10 in the afternoon, is going to be the more critical session, because that's going to be in comparable time and comparable weather conditions to Sunday's race. So, as I mentioned, and you just mentioned, David, they're going through the process, the cycling process of the three drivers, probably not running the optimum tyre available. They're trying to keep all the good and new tyres back, maybe to get a glimpse in the afternoon, but most certainly for qualifying on Sunday morning.
And you wait your turn down in the pit lane. Malcolm Wilson's arrived this weekend. It's an important race, of course, at Silverstone. He's got his World Rally programme with the M Sport 4 Fiestas to think about this weekend as well. But, of course, there is Bentley wanting a home win. It won here its second ever outing, didn't it, in its maiden season, which was a great result. It came back from a penalty, didn't it? I think it was a drive-through.
It was just one of those outstanding events. And, I mean, I think back to the days when Jaguar were a factory team, and certainly in Group C days, and then Bentley winning at Le Mans, and then now Bentley coming into the Blancpain GT3 Sprint and Endurance Series. It's a big brand.
Yeah. Whereas Audi, at the moment, not having quite such a happy time. Now, there is number 3. That's the Josh Cahill car that has been allowed back out. And it is shown as still having Josh behind the wheel of it, intriguingly.
Okay, well, maybe the transponder has yet to be reset.
You might be right.
But in fairness, I mean, WRT in particular, and the Audi teams in general, they're finding that what's that all about? Just run out of riding along on the crest of a flop or something.
Yes.
Specialist. Anyway, but where Audi are very strong, and WRT in particular, is in the pit lane, and Audi's finished second and third at Brands Hatch last weekend, in large part because they were able to do their overtaking during the pit stop. Well, an overtaking at Brands is becoming a bit of an endangered species, in fairness. Fantastic racetrack. Drivers love it to bits, but it is hard. Most corners blend into one another, so it's hard to get a good, clean attack on a car that you're pursuing.
And it's not the widest of places either, is it? Whereas Silverstone is a wide, modern-day F1 venue.
Yes, it is. And what goes with a Grade 1 FIA World Championship circuit is you are required to have... You can see the width of the track in places. It's almost double the width of, I would say, Brands Hatch.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
So, but the beauty of Brands is it's old school. I mean, really is old school. Silverstone, in its own way, is old school, because this was the home of Formula One before the World Championship in 1948. And then the first Formula One FIA or equivalent World Championship Grand Prix was held here in 1950. A lot of history here, David.
It's in colour now, isn't it? Number 19 Lamborghini, which is the second of the Grasser Racing Team cars. I'm hunting down the times to find where that one is, because it's not showing quite the same pace.
It's in 32nd place.
Thank you. With Norbert
Senior, yeah.
Front row car at Monza. But again, do you think, it's struggling? Do you think, it's just on old tyres?
Well, they finished third in Brands Hatch in the qualifying race on Saturday.
What's Grasser?
What's
Grasser been able to unlock that Reiter couldn't? Is it the car, as in the Huracan, is better than the Gallardo?
the Huracan is clearly a big step forward over the Gallardo. I mean, the influence that the VW-ID group have been able to introduce into the Huracan wasn't there when the Gallardo was in its design phase. And I think they've just got a very good platform. It shares a common engine, probably a common gearbox with the R8 V10 Audi. And I suspect that future Audi product will probably follow more the platform of the Huracan, or possibly share a platform with whatever the next incarnation of a 911 Porsche might be. Yeah. This is what happens when you get a major motor group owning a number of different brands. For cost factors, they have to find a way to share items, platforms, motors, gearboxes, transmissions. But they certainly the Huracan, but Grasser Racing have unlocked something in the Huracan which is impressive. And we saw at Monza, we saw the brand, I mean, to be half a second a lap quicker in qualifying in a lap of 1 minute 21, 22, whatever it was I mean, and when you consider that the top 20 cars were covered by a second, just unbelievable. And I mean, I asked Mirko Bortolotti and he just went stum. I asked Gottfried Grasser after the race, come on, Gottfried, go and tell us what it is. They do not understand the question. You know, they've found something. I think they've found how to unlock the 1 lap pace with this 2017 Pirelli tyre, which, as I described at Brands Hatch, is probably a more gradual rise in grip levels, a flatter performance peak and a more gradual decline. But the previous tyre had a sharper rise and a sharper decline.
Okay.
And I think they've found a way to switch that tyre on. Other people are suggesting that they've done something very clever, and that's sort of biasing the car. So if you've got a circuit with a predominance of right-hand corners, in effect it's put a bit of stagger. So you load the car to work really well in right-hand corners, and whatever the downside in left-hand corners, because there's only a few of them, you take that because the gain is greater. Nobody really knows, but whatever they've done, they've got a quick car.
Sure. Although right now this is the fastest car in the order, and it's the 87 Mercedes. Nico Bastian is at the wheel of it. 87 is the car that is Jean-Luc Bobelic, Nico Bastian and Jules Gounon. It's a Pro-Am car.
Yeah, I mean...
So it's a good on lap time.
It's extremely good, and it's not only good, it's half a second up. On the 22 Matt Parry Nissan. Matt Parry was one of my stars of the Monza weekend, and once again he's driving the wheels of the 22.
Absolutely right. And then you've got Jimmy Eriksson third, Lucas Ordonez fourth. These are the drivers in the cars at the moment. Andrea Caldarelli fifth, and Marco Chiocci is sixth fastest. So 87, Nico Bastian at the wheel. Jules Gounon did the time. Jean-Marc Gounon's son.
Yeah.
And the time that the car has is a 2 minute 0.920. That's very nearly 3 seconds slower, in fact, that last lap.
It'll be interesting to see how long it takes for Jules Gounon to be picked up by or put into what you might call a pro car, because I think that certainly at Brands Hatch he showed very well indeed. I think at Monza likewise. And teams are always looking at the drivers that are currently in maybe as a Pro-Am at the silver in the Pro-Am car, and is that going to be somebody we might want to engage to bring forward as one of our principal drivers in a full pro car? I think he's done a good job, and he's not going unnoticed.
No, indeed. I think I'm right in saying that he's still doing the ADAC GT Championship in Germany in a Corvette like he did last year. And it's interesting because he's chopping and changing from different cars. You know, some people drive an Audi here, an Audi there, an Audi in the championship, whereas Gounon is, okay, it's a big beefy front engine car, but he's moving from one type to another.
I hope it's a little red Corvette.
No, blue. Sorry.
All Corvettes should be little red Corvettes.
What about a little orange and grey Mercedes? Not quite got the same ring, has it? Jimmy Eriksson, the sister car going way wide in the background. The Black Falcon car getting in the way, number 16. Who's driving 16 at the moment?
Well, you've got either Maury, Torgel or Metzger.
Yeah, and where is it in the times? I've lost 16 completely. Oh, it's Metzger, 49th.
Yeah.
Jamie Greene, who pitted quite early on, has not done very much. That car's 45th. But you saw the perils of the traffic there a moment ago.
Yes, he's driving with Stuart Leonard, who was utterly overwhelmed by his result at Brands Hatch. I mean,
really,
almost to the point of being speechless. And he was most, in his little few words I had with him, I thought he was about to have an emotional moment. He was so, I mean, just how special can this be?
And on the subject of Stewart and Michael Meadows as well, if you go back 2 years, the pair of them had a class win here in the Aston Martin, along with Paul Wilson, who very sadly died yesterday morning at the age of 41 after a fight with cancer. And it's quite an emotional weekend for Stewart and for Michael for that reason as well, because their first success in the championship was with Paul. And our thoughts and condolences, of course, go to his family and friends. And he was a very quick Caterham racer before he came into GT racing, and was a class winner here 2 seasons ago, Paul Wilson.
Well, that's always unfortunate to have to carry that kind of thought when you're driving. Hopefully, when you're behind the wheel, that those things can be put behind you, but obviously it will be carried out throughout the weekend by Michael and Stewart.
Now, the Barwell Lamborghini there, a car that was damaged at Monza and then had to be made good for British GT a week later. 78 hustling on, that's Miguel Ramos at the wheel, isn't it? The Vodafone-backed car, or whatever the Italian for Vodafone
it is. In 11th position.
Yeah, going strongly. Now, 78 is the car that he shares with Leo Machitsky and Richard Abra. So that should be good for a decent result in Pro-Am, I would have thought.
Well, at one point, in fact, that car was about third or fourth quickest in the early session, but only got just under 20 minutes, down to 19 minutes in this session remaining. Luckily, we've not had to have any safety car interventions. We just had the one.
Tempting it now.
I know. But we had the one BMW off at the exit of Abbey, but that was a local yellow in Sector 2, so that car was able to return. But yeah, it's just a busy racetrack. And, in spite of the length, 3.6 miles, wherever you look, there are cars, and the inevitable is when we get into qualifying, where do you find clear track?
What exactly?
14, Emil Frey, Albert Costa, he's just popped up into fifth quickest, so 2:01.5. So it's a lot of topping and changing within the top. In fact, he's going to say the top 20. It's just almost every car coming through, there'll be a change in position.
So 18 minutes of this free practice session to go. It doesn't affect the grid. It's a chance for the teams, for the drivers to cycle through and get some more track knowledge and work on setup. But 78 Lamborghini you're looking at with Miguel Ramos at the wheel. Very experienced driver these days, Miguel Ramos. Accelerating onto Hanger Straight. But as John was making the point, it's been a relatively calm session by recent standards. Silverstone, of course, a place with lots of runoff, as is required for modern-day Formula One venues. 22 Nissan, still going rapidly. Struan Moore behind the wheel of it, the Channel Islander. And as I mentioned at the start of the session, the Nissans have in the past gone very strongly around here, so let's see how they shape up for tomorrow's 3-hour sprint. We still call it the Endurance Cup, but it is a 3-hour sprint race, no question.
And I mean, that's been one of the I think, significant changes that have occurred over the last 2-3 seasons. That what is that? It's just the wheel weights causing a sort of an oscillation look on those wheels. But it's the growth of endurance racing and the fact that many of the sprint drivers are now part of the endurance events as well. That we don't have endurance racing. We don't have the kind of thing where the gentleman driver or the talented AM can get in and enjoy his hour or whichever. You've got to be virtually not quite a professional driver, but certainly on the pace pretty much of the professional driver to be competitive.
So Struan Moore trying to get some warmth into the Parry rubber there. We've just got Albert Costa's Jaguar up to second, the Emil Frey Racing Jaguar G3, number 14 second. Katsumasa Chiyo looks on with Alex Buncombe, rather Chris Buncombe there in the black jacket at the front of the garage. Matt Simmons in the red overalls there. They're all looking at the screens.
So the two Nissans third and fifth quickest, so happy days.
That's encouraging, isn't it?
It is encouraging. I mean, it's, towards the end of last year, they seem to lose their way somewhat, and I don't know precisely what has changed within, because there's only so much you're able to do. Of course, balance of performance is one of the major elements in the competitiveness of any of all the teams here this weekend. So maybe that's contributing to an uplift in performance for the Nissan team.
The Raton Lamborghini out of Aintree there, and the spectacularly liveried BMW number 36, the other Valkenhorst car, David Schweitz, Henry Valkenhorst and Matthias Henkeler. But with all due deference, I think it's going to be the Rover Racing BMWs that have the better pace, although actually they've not sparkled at all in this session, have they, the Rover cars?
No, but they were certainly competitive at Brands Hatch.
Yeah.
Of course, different racetrack, different circumstances, but I would assume that the 98 and 99 BMWs will, again, keep repeating. They'll have a schedule of work which they want to go through, and when that's completed, then they'll unleash the full potential of this BMW M6. So this twin turbo V8 and the exhausts, which literally just the first bit of bodywork, you can just see it there behind the front wheel. That's where the turbo exhausts from the BMW. It's a most convoluted installation, but it's all done effectively for aerodynamic gain.
Okay. Ferrari's not sparkling, are they, in this session? 8th now is where you find the best, Marco Chiocci. And guess who's done the absolute best in the first sector of the lap? Johnny Adam, who has now taken over the Aston Martin. And so 97 Aston is on a mission. There is the 488 Pierre Eret driven Ferrari that's the fastest in the AM Cup. They led and then had disappointment with mechanical problems at Monza. We've also got Bentley starting to move up. Andy Soucek has taken over number 8 at his 7th fastest, 6th in his class, hence 06 on the Lumirank display on the windscreen.
Oh, and very, very careful Andy Soucek, because he wasn't clear that the Ferrari saw him coming and wasn't clear that the Ferrari was actually going to give ground, and sort of you think, well, has he or hasn't he? Oh, come on, Andy. I mean, you've got to show a little bit more authority than that. Maybe other factors, but there is the Aston Martin 97.
He's done 2 absolute bests.
Well, he's going to go quickest overall, and this is at a dire third sector.
And there's no traffic around. This is Luffield, so he's only got Woodcote to go, and then up towards the timing line. So Johnny got us on our toes at Monza with his catch-up in his stint. He's only allowed to do one stint way up the curb on the inside of Woodcote, who breaks the timing beam, but he goes fastest. 2 minutes 0.510. Absolute best, personal best. Hello, Johnny Adam.
Well, that Harling V12 engine is part of the contribution to that lap time, but it is a very sweet chassis.
But there again, I mean, you've talked about this, John, in the past, the mark of a professional driver. Let your co-driver do what he needs to do. Right, Johnny, it's your turn. Okay, gets in, straps himself in, and does what he has to do. Go fastest.
Yep, and I mean, he's been a stalwart of the brand for good. How many years has he been a part of the Aston Martin?
Good 4 or 5, isn't it?
A long time.
Yeah.
And again, preparation now in the hands of, is it Tom Farmer? Tom Ferrier.
Yeah.
I mean, stepped up, taken over the running of this car. Whether they've found more time or not, but certainly this car has been very impressive. And at Monza in particular, Johnny Adam was sensational. And again, going out 0.4 of a second quicker than everybody else. Just needs to be careful not to be seen to being too greedy with his use of the curb, but knows the circuit inside out, and as long as he's got tyre temperature and good grip, the times are going to be there.
So if they do what they did at Monza, Ahmad Al-Hafi will do the first 2 stints. Johnny is only allowed to do 1 anyway, so you put him in at the end, because, as we mentioned earlier, if there is a safety car period, he can go charging up the order.
And Ahmad Al-Hafi is actually, as the AM and the Pro-Am lineup, is a very competent and speedy AM, and is happy to do 2 hours. 2 hours at Monza, 2 hours at Silverstone. I don't know what's going to be the more demanding. Maybe the heat at Silverstone will not take so much out of you, but the G-forces at Silverstone are probably amongst the highest of any racetrack currently in use in the Blancpain GT sprint and endurance events. And coming through Woodcote, the run down into Copse on the brakes, but the turn through, the speed you carry at the apex of the corner, then allow the car to free on the exit, the climb uphill into Maggots, then Beckett's, then in the exit of Chapel, and it's this change of direction. I remember one famous British world champion who said the G-forces through those 3 corners was about 15 G. And nobody could work it out because he was adding up each corner.
Yes.
As a total. I mean, Everybody else was completely bamboozled by it, but it obviously made sense to him.
A superhuman effort, hey, to do that.
That was the point. I think we are superhuman efforts.
Even if not with the arithmetic. That Lucas Ordonez getting on with the job. This is the 23 Nissan, 6th fastest. And he works his way over the timing line down towards Copse Corner now. Running on his own. Lucas Ordonez, another of this very, very successful long list of people that's come through the Nissan and Sony's PlayStation Academy contest. The couch to cockpits competition. And you're riding with him up towards the Beckett's S's. Turn right, turn left, 5th gear, Dr. 4th. Gently with the power, down to 3rd.
Yes, indeed. Interesting, he takes 3rd just to give the punch as he comes on through Chapel onto the straight, then up through the gears, 5th gear, and grabbing 6th just under the bridge. No, he holds 5th, he takes it late. So as the speed increases, then the aerodynamic drag begins to take its toll. Back to 3rd, clicks, short shifts into 4th, interestingly, to avoid spinning up the inside rear wheel. 5th, 4th, down to 2nd. And this is really just about being neat and tidy. Don't be overly aggressive. Watch the curb here on the outside. When that's slippery, that will catch you out then. Just try and make it a constant arc. Whoa, Lucas, we're not on GT Academy, Game Boy or whatever it is. We're doing it for rail. That's not nice. I don't think that'll be something you'll be doing too frequently without getting picked up.
Yeah, I think he glanced the curve on the inside, didn't he? And that spat him across the road. But anyway,
doesn't matter.
No, it's still wrong.
Matter.
It's a track limit drama. And Lucas Ordonez, I'm pretty sure as well, I could see a hand to acknowledge that he'd done wrong there. So he accepts wasn't the ideal line. Won't do it again. Ooh, pressing on though, isn't he?
Oh no, he's getting on with the programming. Currently they are 6th place. So they've got 8 minutes and 45 seconds to go. Traffic ahead, so slightly frustrated this lap. Let's see what he was doing. Nothing that looked to be unique or special at the time. There's no greens for personal bests, no purples for fastest overall in that sector. His last lap was a 2:04, so traffic came into play. Let's see what this last lap is, 2:02.6. So that, it's about 0.9 of a second away from the car's overall quickest time.
Well, there's the hero of the hour, Johnny Adam. And he has done for the moment, so he can now put Ahmed Al-Hafi back in, give him a bit more track time.
How frustrating is it for an armed driver to let his pro go out in the car, do a run of 5 or 6 laps, slap it quickest overall, and then say, well, there are the keys.
Yeah.
As good as Ahmed Al-Hafi is, he's still not as quick as Johnny, and he doesn't pretend to be. All he wants to be is to be consistent and get as close. But nevertheless, that gap in times, maybe it's half a second a lap overall, it's like half a day.
Yeah, indeed. But that maiden class win, great result for them both. And Ahmad, who's a real star back home. Go on.
59.
Oh.
Who's it driven by? Can't quite read it on the timing and scoring. Is that W-A-T? It might well be. From where?
Northern Ireland. Andrew Watson has gone up to 8th fastest, number 59. Yep, the Northern Irish driver putting himself as the best of the McLarens,
I was going to say quickest of the McLarens so far.
Where's he from?
Dungannon.
That's just on the left, isn't it?
In the middle, south of the biggest eel fishery in Europe.
Oh, we all knew that.
But smoked eel is delicious. Horseradish sauce, a little bit of lemon juice, a bit of black pepper, and some lovely wholemeal bread. Truly a meal for
kings.
Gourmets.
Right. Well, he'll be the quickest of the McLarens then, Andrew Watson.
Wow.
So
you're on form today.
8th fastest. And he's not slacking off, is he? He's still pushing. Andrew, who came out of Ginetta Racing, and a very unassuming character, good guy, and a very quick racing driver.
Yeah, interestingly, looking at the 99 BMW, it's suddenly leapt up to 4th place.
Philip Eng at the wheel, I would suggest. Is that a car with a problem? Number 90, yes. It's got a puncture, I think. It's low on one side. Number 90 is Michael Meadows, Edo Mortara, Raffaele Marciello. That really you would expect
right front
to be
looks like it's
at the front.
Yeah,
no. It's Marciello at the wheel of it.
Whether that again is the consequence of The racetracks these days are almost a hazard zone because there's so much carbon fibre gets scattered around through incidents, people dragging it back onto the racetrack, having maybe been off track, cuts the tyre down so quickly, so it's almost half the distance back to the circuit, back to the pit lane. So Raffaele Marcello, can't even pronounce his name now. Very, very, again, another real asset to this ASA ACA team.
There it is, there's the flat front right. So he's nursing it back to the pit lane. But really his session is over, I think, because by the time he's got there and they've changed it, there'll be so little time left. He's going at as good a pace as he can without making more damage.
So the 19 Lamborghini, just looking to see where that is. Timing and scoring doesn't appear to be...
Sorry, 19.
Was it the 19 Lamborghini, the green?
Yeah, 30th, that one.
Indeed it is, yes.
With Ezequiel Perez Companc now behind the wheel.
And he did an outstanding job at Brands Hatch, managing to keep the entire field behind him. And the 63 Lamborghini just sprinted into the distance.
He was the cork in the bottle, though,
yeah. I mean, he was doing quite rightly his job.
98 BMW through the sister Rover car. There is 99 Philippe Eng, Carrera Cup champion a few seasons back for a number of seasons, and then finally being picked up, not by Porsche, but by BMW to come into their GT programme. And he's at the Beckett S's at the moment. He'll get at least one more lap out of the session at the end of this, as into the pit lane comes Raffaele Marciello.
Oh, look at the steam coming off that. Yeah. Oh, yes, inside. Wow, look at that. I've never seen that before. A rim that split the rim.
Yeah.
And that's unusual. I don't know why that would have occurred. Well, that was the cause, or the effect of the return to the pits, but I've never seen a rim actually machined away and coming away in two parts.
It's like a clean cut, isn't it?
They want to make sure all the bodywork, the splitters, the little aerodynamic winglets and the nose, that everything is firmly attached, which it appears to be, but that's an unusual moment.
So 99, Philippe Eng pressing on, but I don't think he's going to go any quicker, in fairness. He's not looking likely so to do in the sectors. And he's making his way now. Whoops, getting all crossed up towards Village.
Yeah, a little bit late in the brakes. Back end started to come around.
Caught the slide well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, yes. Then all the way back through the loop, through Aintree corner. Again, runs pretty wide, but on to Wellington Straight. Just 2 minutes and 40 seconds remaining in time for this lap. And one more lap, and that will be pretty much the end of the day for the 99. In fact, I think he's coming in. Unless he's deciding just to line it up and have another go because of that slip. I think he's doing that. Decided to abandon that particular lap. He knew that he had lost time, so no point pursuing it. And also catching up to the back of McLaren, now the Audi as well.
So one or two teams staying out to the very end, one or two heading for the pit lane. As you look at 3-3-3, which is the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari in the hands of Renat Salikov, Alexander Matschul and Daniel Kalvitz.
63 just ahead of it. So that dropped down now to 8th place.
Andrea Calderani at the wheel of the Lamborghini. They might just squeeze through this pair onto another lap. Now, who has got the driving duties in 333 at the moment? It's Daniel Kalvitz, so it's 12th fastest. Kalvitz is a very quick, underrated driver. Former gun in the FIA GT3 European Championship, former German GT champion. But whenever he's been in Blancpain, he's only ever been in Pro-Am cars, so we've never really seen him. Yes, in his own stints he's been good, but he's been compromised by slower co-drivers. He's slow on the straight. And
he's backed off, or he has a problem. I
think he's going for clear track space,
yes,
isn't he?
I think that's what he's looking for. He's got 1 minute and 16 seconds. He's got plenty of time to roll through Brooklands and then fire it up on the exit of Luffield. When you're doing this kind of thing, you can actually use a different line to get a better launch off Luffield, which if you're on a flying lap you wouldn't be inclined to do, because it actually it's slower, but the benefit comes at the end of the straight. So the BMW make its way past the 97 Aston Martin and just traffic everywhere you look. Audi tucked up under the rear of the BMW, pulls out. Oh, that's the Aston Martin, I beg your pardon, tucked up behind the rear of the BMW, but couldn't do anything about it.
That's gone back to Al Harfi, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
So it's the fastest car in the session, but with the other driver having done the time. The 333 Ferrari carried on, and the flag is imminent. Actually, it seems to have got busier right at the very end, so everybody has gone back out again for one last shot, just to make sure that cars are good for pre-qualifying later on. So 10 seconds are on the clock as they come at this gaggle out of club, up towards Abbey. Ahmad Al Harfi in the Aston Martin, not necessarily suggesting it's going to be on pole position, but it will be a good story, a British car on pole. If it is, it's down to a Johnny Adam time, potentially. And there is the flag, so free practice at an end. The first proper track activity of the weekend for the Blancpain GT Series Endurance Cup. Yesterday, those that were eligible did the bronze test at the end of the day. A day that had had lots of stoppages and interruptions. There's Johnny Adam, keeping warm. You'd have thought that being from tropical Scotland, Silverstone would be equally warm for him, but it's a blustery old day, hence the woolly hat. Although he's based these days in the south of England, strategically based between airports, as professional drivers need to be. So Ahmad Al Harfi brings the car out of Luffield, and he will take the flag on the track rather than in the pit lane. But it's been a job well done by the pair of them here. So Aston Martin fastest, second fastest was another of the Pro-Am cars, interestingly, the Jean-Luc Bourbelik, Nico Bastien, Jules Gounon Mercedes. So perhaps inevitably, whether it's a Pro Cup car or a Pro-Am Cup car, as soon as you put the Pro element into it, it's going to be quick. And third, the better of the two Jaguars. Number 14 with Laurence Frey doing the last laps in the car. Fourth BMW, Philippe Eng. Fifth Ferrari, Daniel Calvert. So a nice mix of car and driver and team up on the top at the end of free practice. And the improvements are still coming. In fact, Calvert goes fifth as he takes the flag. We've got Alessandro Pierguidi ninth as he takes the flag in Ferrari 50, which flew under the radar really in that session. And there is number 97, which is the Ahmad Al Harfi Aston Martin on effectively his in-lap. So a relatively quiet session, much to talk about, much to enjoy, and happily, given recent events, no damage for people. Puncture here, a spin there, but largely no real problems for the teams. So they go into pre-qualifying later on today, and then qualifying in a 3-hour sprint tomorrow.
So Aston Martin makes its way onto the Wellington Straight. Session concluded. Nice to come in at a reasonable pace, so it gives the tyre engineers a chance to get an indication of what tyre temperatures are doing. Often when a session is finished, drivers use the opportunity to catch their breath, and I mean that literally. That's where the worst thing you can do is come into the pits panting like a racehorse after doing the Grand National. Indicates your fitness levels may not be quite up to snuff. Anyway, gives the team and the tyre engineers an opportunity to see what you're doing as the Nissan, the 23 Nissan, the sort of what you might call the pro car, but actually with Matt Parry in the 22 car, it's about as pro as you can get, I would say.
We also touched on this at Monza. It's one of the older cars. Yes, the Aston Martin has been around for a long time, but that Nissan has quite a long lineage, doesn't it? It goes back many a season.
It does. And how do you make a car of that age competitive? Well, the obvious way really is to adjust a balance of performance to give them an advantage to offset some of the fact that the car hasn't reached the elevated technological heights of some of the competition.
Sure. So Johnny Adam fastest here at Silverstone at the end of free practice by 4/10 from Jules Gounon, and then Albert Costa third in the Jaguar, Philippe Eng fourth, Daniel Calvert's fifth, Ferrari behind BMW, sixth the Matt Simmons, Struan Moore, Matt Parry Nissan ahead of Maxi Buch, Franck Pereira and Jimmy Eriksson. Alex Buncombe is eighth with Lucas Ordonez and Katsumasa Chiyo. Now, how much you read into free practice is up to you, really. They're on old tyres. They're not necessarily going for a time. They're working on setup. They're getting drivers cycle through. So it's an interesting order, picking out one or two cars that you might have anticipated to go better. 18th, Lucas Stoltz, Adam Christodoulou and Jelmer Berman, for example. Have a look down and you find the 32nd, the second of the Jaguars. So big disparity between the positioning and the classification for those two cars. Rory Butcher's Ferrari ending up 29th, not a car he knows that well, so he'll be keen to do more mileage in that over the course of pre-qualifying later on. Alvaro Parent, Lewis Williamson, Ollie Webb down 36th fastest. The sister Rover car, Bruno Spengler, the DTM champion, Marcus Palteler and Jesse Krohn, that's only 37th, ahead of Sam Tordoff that is, Johnny Kane and David Fumanelli. And Rob Bell and Coleman Edgar, last year's endurance champions, but 40th with Ben Barnicoat for company. So there's an awful lot. And look, 2 WRT cars way down. Quite a few teams, I think, that will be eager to find some more pace when we get to pre-qualifying later on. So that's the order at the end of the free practice session. And let's have a quick look at some of the best bits of an hour of free practice here as the cars ventured out onto the circuit. Everybody busy straight away looking for clear bits of track space. Some found it easier than others. The Barwell Lamborghinis pressed on, so also the Rover Racing BMWs with 98 in the end, not having quite the same pace as the sister 99 car that was up the order. 22, which is the Moore Simmons Parry Nissan, was okay. Mercedes in strife and also BMW in strife down at the bottom of Vale. Number 2, Audi. Stefan Rochelmi, Nathaniel Betton and Benoit Trellier never really got going, it seems. 35 was a car that ended up in the gravel. Christian Cronjes went off the road. And 87 was quit when Jules Gounon was behind the wheel. That car getting up to briefly fastest, but then ending up second. Plenty of variety on this grid, more BMWs, but in the end it was the sole Aston Martin, Johnny Adam, installed for a handful of laps that went fastest, and a 0.4 of a second margin, putting Johnny Adam quicker than everybody else at the end of the session. So next, we turn our attention to pre-qualifying, and that is going to be on track here at Silverstone at round about 15:50. We'll see you then from John and from me, David Addison. Bye for now.